Number 10, Machine Head. Machine Head may have been defeated in season 1 of the animated series and in the comics, but you have to admit he put up a surprisingly good fight, especially for a villain whose name is as lame as Machine Head. Machine Head has, well, a machine for a head. His robotic head allows him to easily get upgrades, which is what enables him to almost defeat the Guardians of the Globe, Invincible, and Titan. Although, to be fair, Titan pretty much bails soon after the battle turns against their favor because, well, he has other plans. Machine Head had, well, basically a probability chip installed, which in essence allows him to see the possible futures. This means that he was prepared for the potential attack of Invincible and the Guardians, and even managed to use his wealth and connections to get a ton of villains to join him, including Battle Beast, who almost single-handedly kills everyone, but gets bored of the fight, leaving early, seeing the heroic opponents as pretty much below him. Number 9, Debbie Grayson. I know some of you might be throwing a fit over me including Debbie here, but honestly, she is one of my top favorite characters, and after what everyone just witnessed her go through in season 1 of the animated series, especially in that finale there, I feel like she deserves a spot on this list. Debbie is the mother of Mark and is the human wife of Omni-Man. If you, like me, were terrified for her during the animated series because of how human she is, you can breathe a sigh of relief that she made it through safely. Whew, she made it through season 1, friends. Despite being human and therefore pretty fragile, Debbie is a fearsome character who is not afraid to confront her husband Nolan with the truth when she discovers that he was responsible for the deaths of the Guardians of the Globe and has been hiding it from her and everyone. Also, if we are talking about emotional and mental resilience here in terms of power, Debbie is one of the most powerful characters that I know. She has been to hell and back mentally and still manages to keep going. Perhaps at times broken, but never defeated. Number 8, Donald Ferguson. While Donald Ferguson might appear super squishy in the animated series, in the comics he's actually not so easy to defeat. In fact, Donald Ferguson is a cyborg, so that scene where Omni-Man grabs his spine, it likely wouldn't have gone down quite like that. Considering that Donald blew himself up in the show, it's unclear as to whether or not we'll get to see the cyborg version that we're used to. Probably not. In the comics, he actually ends up making it through to pretty much the end. Ferguson is mostly metal despite his appearance. You might not know it to look at him because he usually wears a synthetic skin over the metal parts that aren't on display. He usually uses his arms to fight, turning them into big guns or pulsar cannons. Number 7, Britt. Britt is kind of like a combination of Captain America and Luke Cage. He's got a military background and de-accelerated aging, as well as impenetrable skin. He also has a half-sister who is just about as badass and is also kinda super weird, who shares his name but spells it differently. Her name is Brittany. Britt's name is Brittany. There are a lot of Brittnys in his family, actually. Many Brittnys. Britt had 3 series of his own: Britt Cold Death, and Britt Red, White, Black, and Blue, but also appeared in Guarding the Globe Volume 1 from the Invincible universe. Britt also appeared more regularly in the Invincible series later on, but made his first appearance in there as early as issue 11. Number 6, Shrinking Ray. Shrinking Ray or Shrinking Ray? Shrinking Ray appears both in the comics and in the animated series, though the 2 versions of the characters are a little different from one another. In the comics, Shrinking Ray is a man and a hero whose origins remains a mystery. It is, however, rumored that Ray was an intern at Microorganics Limited who received his powers following an accident that took place there. There was apparently an intern named Ray that went missing after that accident. In the animated series, Ray is a woman whose powers are the same as her comic book counterpart. They both possess powers that allow them to change size at will, like Ant-Man or the Atom. Ray was considered in the comics to be a kind of obscure hero initially, but eventually he made his way onto the Guardians of the Globe, proving himself. However, Ray would continue to remain insecure about his power set in comparison to some of the other grander powers that his teammates possessed. Number 5, Brittany. Brittany is even stronger than her half-brother. She made her first appearance in issue 48 of Invincible, but really where she shines is in Britt's series, in my opinion. There we get to see what she is really capable of. Brittany has powers similar to her brother's. She has superhuman strength, invulnerable skin, and a much slower aging process. Brittany has also been shown to have a very close connection to her half-brother. At one point, when he is presumed dead, she looks at the skeletal remains that were retrieved and believed to be his, licks the skull, and is able to tell that it isn't her brother. That's really weird. She can also survive at extremely low temperatures. Number 4, Doc Seismic. Doc Seismic might not have survived till the end in the comics, but he had a good run. And odds are good if you thought that was the last that you would see of him in the animated series, that we were all misled there, and he will be back. In fact, in the comics, Dr. Seismic even wins the day, and not against any B or D-list heroes either. Invincible and Adam Eve themselves respond to his threat, and even they get their butts whooped. If you want to check out how Doc wins, check out issue 48. This was a villain that when I first saw him in the animated series, I immediately became a fan. He's just so outlandish, so ridiculous, but in that perfect comic book villain way, where you know he'll likely end up winning the day almost because of his flair for the dramatic. As someone who also has a flair for the dramatic, I can get behind it. Number 3, Rexplode. I mean, who doesn't love a Gambit-inspired hero, am I right? With just a dash of Jubilee mixed in. See, as an example, the fireworks display that Rex sets off in an attempt to get Eve's attention and apologize after cheating on her. Rex might not always be the most bright, kind, or approachable of the bunch, but at the end of the day, his heart is in the right place and he truly is a hero. Initially, he and Eve spent time together on the run, which was what brought them together to begin with. Rex's powers allow him to charge objects, turning them into explosives. He typically fights with smaller objects so that these explosions are more controlled. But during the events of Invincible War, he would end up giving his life against a threat so great that it seemed it would be impossible for the heroes to win the day. He supercharges his skeleton, creating a massive explosion that would save the day, but cost him his life. Sure, he died, but having the conviction to follow through with a plan like that, in addition to his abilities, which I think are pretty cool, makes him pretty powerful in my books. Number 2, Black Samson. Black Samson originally had superpowers that granted him superhuman strength, endurance, and durability, and was an original member of the Guardians of the Globe. However, after he lost his powers, he was kicked off of the team. Yearning to return to a life of heroism, he had Art make him a suit which would allow him to hopefully one day return, augmenting his abilities. Initially, it was believed that Black Samson could have killed the Guardians, seeking revenge for them kicking him off of the team, but this was later disproved as Samson had an alibi and had been home at the time of their death. Samson would later use his suit to get himself a place back on the Guardians of the Globe team when Robot was assembling the new squad. During the fight against Machine Head, Samson was gravely injured and would end up comatose. However, when he awoke, his superpowers had returned to him and were actually even more powerful than before, meaning that he no longer needed to wear his suit. His power levels were way higher than normal when he first awoke, allowing him to turn the tides in the fight against the villain Omnipotus. Number 1, Bulletproof. Bulletproof initially tried out for the Guardians of the Globe, but he actually didn't make the cut. However, he'd later be added to the team because of his flight powers. Bulletproof is Zandale Randolph, who got his powers because of his twin brother Tyrone's obsession with superpowers. Tyrone drugged his brother and decided to experiment on him because his genes were so similar to his own, with them being identical twins. Tyrone would be successful in giving his brother powers, but would die in the process. Zandale's powers make him virtually invincible. He can absorb energy, has enhanced healing, superhuman strength, speed, and endurance. He is also capable of interstellar flight. He is invulnerable to energy-based attacks, including kinetic energy-based attacks. He took the name Bulletproof because, well, he is that. But he would later go on to also take up Mark's mantle of Invincible, which I think is also pretty appropriate. Number 10, Isotope. Teleportation has always been for me one of the strongest powers that exists in the comics. Isotope is no exception there. What he lacks probably is his own drive and the intelligence needed to be a leader himself. It is for this reason that we likely see him playing second fiddle to Machine Head in the animated series. He seems to prefer to be more of a supervillain's lackey than a supervillain in his own right. Still, without him, Machine Head doesn't have the getaway he needs, meaning that he's kinda trapped. And Isotope is still a smart enough villain to know when it's a good idea to abandon ship, which is why he decided to ally himself with Titan instead of Machine Head going forward. Number 9, Cecil Stedman. Cecil might only be a human, but he's still a pretty smart human, one who knows when to make moves and how to stack the deck in his favor. He is the one who tells the Guardians of the Globe what to do, not their leader so much as just their boss. His only power comes from tech in the animated series, which allows him to teleport using bracelets. Surprisingly, Cecil is unafraid to face supervillains and superheroes who are far more powerful than him in terms of what he is capable of. You may have noticed that he seems to have a bunch of small scars on his lip or near his lip in the animated animated series. In the comics, we learn that this is because years ago, as a government agent, while on a mission, he was exposed to a flesh-eating gas. He was saved and then had the skin that had been eaten away replaced, save for that one spot to remind him of how bad he'd messed up. While his methods are sometimes questionable, there is nothing Cecil wouldn't sacrifice to try and save the world. Number 8. Titan. Titan is the character that we first see Invincible run into and beat up when he first gets his powers in the animated series. But just because Mark beats him straight out of the gate doesn't mean you should dismiss this villain. Later on in the series and also the comics, Titan would deceive Invincible. In the animated series, we see him come to Invincible asking for help. He claims he wants out of his life as a criminal, wanting to go straight for his family. He asked for Invincible's help in defeating Machine Head so that he can be free. But just like in the comics, after Machine Head is defeated, Titan steps in to take his place as the new ruler of Machine Head's criminal empire. His powers grant him enhanced strength and endurance, allowing him to encase his body in rock. But what really makes him powerful is his ability to manipulate others into doing his bidding. Granted, he probably will be a better crime lord than Machine Head. I mean, he's gotta be, right? Number 7. Dinosaurus. Dinosaurus is David Anders, who has the power to turn into, you guessed it, a dinosaur, specifically resembling a humanoid T-Rex. This change comes upon him whenever he feels a sense of indifference towards something. While in his Dinosaurus form, David is granted superhuman levels of strength, toughness, and agility. He also is smarter in his dino form, often using his genius to outsmart his opponent, or to manipulate them. His genius intellect also kind of gives him a god complex as well, making him obsessed with solving humanity's problems, but at any cost. Whenever he switches back to his human self, any injuries he has sustained also heal instantly. Number 6. Duplicate. Duplicate is one of the members of the new Guardians of the Globe. Her abilities are pretty cool and allow her to create an unlimited number of duplicates of herself. Her powers are actually the result of an ancient Chinese curse and were meant to cause her family to go insane. Her father actually gave up his children for adoption after he learned that both she and her brother Paul both had this ability. Having children that could multiply at will would be very stressful. Kate and Paul would work towards gaining better control over their powers and would use them to fight crime together as a superhero duo, with Paul taking up the name Multi-Paul. Later, he would become a villain while Kate would remain a hero. Kate would go on to join the Teen Team and later the Guardians of the Globe. Number 5. Powerplex. Powerplex almost succeeded in defeating Mark and became one of his arch nemeses. This is because during a fight that Invincible and Omni-Man were having, the destruction they caused killed Powerplex's sister. Scott's powers allow him to absorb energy, however, it is possible to overload him. At one point, Scott attempts to attract Invincible's attention, but using his wife and son as bait, asking them to pretend to be his hostages. Mark arrives and attempts to save them, getting in a fight with Powerplex, aka Scott Duval, who reveals the real reason for wanting to fight Invincible. When Invincible punches him, however, Powerplex overloads, exploding with excess energy. This explosion ends up killing his son and wife, who were playing hostage for him. Devastated at their deaths, this only makes Scott hate Mark even more, as he also now blames Invincible for their deaths as well. Number 4. Tech Jacket. Tech Jacket is a member of the Guardians of the Globe. He ends up joining the Invincible stable of characters later on in the comic series, becoming a recurring character, but actually first appears in his own spin-off series based in that universe, self-titled Tech Jacket. Tech Jacket is Zach Thompson, a hero who received an alien tech jacket after encountering a crashed spaceship and a dying alien. That alien's name was Kelda, and they belong to a physically fragile and weaker race of aliens known as the Geldarians. To compensate, they created the Tech Jacket for every member of their race to wear. The Tech Jacket is a permanent item of clothing that is generally never removed. It grants Zack enhanced speed, strength, stamina, and agility. It can create energy blasts and weapons for the user to wield. It can also create force fields and can clean and provide sustenance to its user when needed. If you are looking to the main Invincible series for Tech Jacket, check out issues 71 to 78. He appears in that little run of issues. He's also in a few other issues, but that's like a whole run you could read. Number 3. Conquest. Up until this point in the comics, Conquest was one of the scariest villains we had ever encountered, and one of the strongest, most durable Viltrumites we had yet to meet. Conquest is an older Viltrumite, believed to be even older than Mark's dad, Nolan, and Nolan is like thousands of years old. An experienced warrior, Conquest almost straight up murdered Adam, Eve, and Invincible, as well as Mark's brother Oliver, Kid Omni-Man. Even when Invincible got the upper hand in their fight, and he thought the Conquest was dead, with his face being headbutted by Mark until it was basically unrecognizable, it still turned out that he had somehow survived. The more bloody and brutal a fight gets, the more Conquest seems to actually enjoy it. He is crazy. Number 2, Terra. Terra is the daughter of Adam, Eve, and Invincible. She was born on Earth but would move to Telescria with her parents. Because she is part Viltrumite, she will likely grow up to be even stronger than her father who came before her, as this is usually the way with Viltrumites. This means that Terra has the potential to become stronger than both her father, grandfather, and of course anyone that they themselves have seemed capable of beating in battle. She is shown to have the natural superpowers and abilities of your average Viltrumite. But like I said, she has the potential for being one of the strongest. Number 1, Thrag. Or is it Throg? I mean, I haven't heard it said out loud yet, so Thrag or Throg, which one do we want to go with? Guess we'll kind of have to wait to find out when he shows up in the show. Whenever that happens. Thrag is the Grand Regent of the Viltrumite Empire, making them basically the ruler and, in effect, emperor, or the equivalent. He is a villain who initially wants Mark and his father Nolan dead. Thrag battles them on Earth and is briefly interrupted by Battle Beast. He is known for being the strongest Viltrumite and is also thousands of years old, having fought in the Viltrumite Civil War after the death of their emperor Argal. Thrag would end up being given the title of Grand Regent. He attempts to make a deal with Mark and Nolan that Viltrumites will take up residence on Earth as undercover aliens to help bolster the much depleted population of Viltrumites. However, he goes back on this deal of peace in exchange for cohabitation after he learns that Nolan was Argal's son and that Mark is therefore the heir to the throne, fighting to preserve his title. In the end, he is defeated, but only after everyone basically bands together and helps that to happen. Thrag still proves how powerful he is when he ends up being the one to defeat Battle Beast after days of battling with him, with both continuing to fight while disemboweled. Wow. Number 10, War Woman. War Woman takes a bit of inspiration from Thor and a little bit of inspiration from Wonder Woman. She is a hero who comes from another more fantastical world. Due to her more divine heritage, she is amazingly strong and durable. We didn't see her as much in the comics, but in the show, she appears as a force to be reckoned with. War Woman was an original member of the Guardians of the Globe, a superhero team that came from all over the world. In the show, in her everyday secret identity, War Woman posed as Holly and was the head of a major corporation in Boston. She hoped to use her company as well to make the world a better place. Even when she wasn't in her hero persona, she was striving to be a hero. Number 9, Damien Darkblood. Damien Darkblood was only a minor character in the comics, appearing in only a handful of issues in the main Invincible series. Darkblood is a mysterious demon detective. Think Hellboy meets John Constantine with a little bit of Spawn or Damon Hellstrom mixed in. Solving cases on Earth gives him time away from Hell and seems to be his way of kind of atoning for his past, or his demon heritage, or perhaps lessening his sentence in Hell. He has some demon-based powers that seem to allow him to appear in the darkness, lurk in the shadows potentially unseen, see through maybe the darkness, and perhaps even teleport. He also seems to have a sixth sense for evil, but mostly he is known as a skilled investigator. His obsession with the truth also reminds me a bit of Rorschach, and he seems to be determined to uncover the truth in a very particular case, and once uncovered to gather enough evidence to expose this truth to the world. Number 8, Monster Girl. And I'm not just putting her on this list because her name is also Amanda. Monster Girl is a powerful character who can change into an intensely powerful Hulk-like monster. The problem? It de-ages her a bit every time she transforms. This is because Monster Girl's powers were given to her by a curse. Initially, her powers were hard for her to control, but with training and practice, she was able to control her transformations, choosing when she wanted to transform. In her monster form, she has superhuman strength and durability. She also becomes a massive beast, and the younger she becomes, actually, the more massive her beast form is. So if she is a young girl and transforms into her beast form, it's going to be larger than if she were to transform into a beast as an older woman. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want to learn even more about Invincible, please let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Please do it. I really want to talk about more Invincible. Number 7, Alan. Alan is a bureaucratic alien who is a champion evaluation officer. He flies around to planets to make sure registered guardians there are prepared for potential lesser intergalactic threats. For many years, he has been coming to Earth to battle Omni-Man under the notion that he was doing his job and his duty. He later discovered that he may have misunderstood some information and went to the wrong planet for years to check in. Oops. Alan belongs to the Unipan race. As such, he possesses the powers of telepathy, superhuman strength, endurance, and speed. He can even evolve to become stronger upon defeat, allowing him to adapt to his opponents so that he can match or beat them in terms of their power levels. Alan, of course, is also capable of flying through space, which is how he travels from planet to planet, checking in on his assigned guardians. Number 6, Robot. Robot appears to be an AI. He is a robotic being who is gifted with a genius-level intellect and a barrage of powers related to his cybernetic body. He is a skilled leader and is very good at scientific analysis. If there is a problem that needs solving, especially if it pertains to the field of science, Robot can likely find the answer and provide a solution, and do it all in a very timely manner. Robot also, for a time in the comics, had an army of drones that he could call upon and bend to his will, using them to aid his team in battle. Robot is perfectly voiced by Zachary Quinto in the Amazon Prime series, and honestly, I think he might be my favorite character of those that we've seen so far in that animated series. Well, actually, he's tied with Debbie, Mark's mom, who I'm also a pretty big fan of. I do love Debbie. I really wanted to put Debbie on this list. I was very tempted to put her at my number 1 spot, but she doesn't actually have powers, so. But she's very strong of heart and of mind, I feel. Number 5, the Immortal. The Immortal is one of the initial members that we meet who belongs to the Guardians of the Globe. He's got a little bit of a Vandal Savage or Old Guard feel, but his only power isn't just his immortality, though it's probably his greatest power. He can fly, is capable of intergalactic travel, and has superhuman strength, speed, durability, and endurance. The Immortal has been alive for thousands of years, and although he's tried to die in the past, it's pretty much impossible. He can heal from almost all wounds, no matter how great or how severe. Based on what we know about Immortal, he can come back from pretty much anything, but just how much damage is even too much damage for him? Number 4, Adam Eve. Adam Eve definitely has to be one of the strongest ones out there. Her powers are similar to that of Marvel's Invisible Woman, minus the invisible part. But she also kind of gives me a bit of a Starfire feel, even though she is not an alien like Corey is. Adam Eve's real name is Samantha Eve Wilkins. When we first meet her in the animated series, she's the girlfriend of fellow teammate Rexplode. The two heroes work together as members of a more minor superhero team known as the Teen Team. And she is one of the heroes besides Omni-Man who offers to mentor Invincible. Her powers allow her to manipulate energy at a subatomic level, either organic or inorganic. She uses this ability to give herself powers in the form of flight, force fields, energy blasts, telekinesis, and energy constructs. She also is extremely hard to permanently kill. I don't want to give anything away, but I'm just going to leave it at that. Number 3, Omni-Man. Omni-Man is obviously one of the strongest characters that we see in the series and in the show. He's built up to be that way, and he remains that way pretty much throughout. Omni-Man is an alien known as a Viltrumite, who hailed from the planet Viltrum. In case any of this is sounding familiar to you, yeah, he's pretty much the Invincible version of DC's Superman. But the great thing about this series is that it takes archetypal heroes like Superman that you think you know and kind of offers you a different perspective on them. And Omni-Man is definitely that. During the beginning of the series, we learn that Omni-Man is Invincible's dad, and we come to see him as an all-powerful hero. He claims to have come to Earth to become its sworn protector, and shortly after arriving here, he met and fell in love with Debbie, Mark's mother, and then he had Mark. Omni-Man is extremely strong, fast, durable, and tough. He can fly, ages slower, can travel through space, he's invulnerable, his skin basically impenetrable, and he has enhanced healing, which allows him to bounce back more quickly than humans for wounds that would typically be deemed life-threatening. Number 2, Invincible. While Invincible might seem kinda inexperienced now where we're at in the show, it's established in the Invincible universe in the comics that Viltrumites get stronger throughout the familial generations. This means that in the comics, Mark is the one that inevitably ends up on top when it comes to who has more power than who. Of course, he still has a lot of work to do in the Amazon Prime show when it comes to tapping into that power and finding the best way to utilize it. But even as a beginner, he's still very much a force to be reckoned with, which is definitely acknowledged by his fellow supers around him. And while you might point to the fact that he is the son of both Omni-Man and Debbie, so he's half human, that does not override the genetic traits of his dad's side. Invincible will likely continue to get stronger as the show progresses, just like he did in the comics. I wonder if this version of him will also discover the multiverse. And will he see the comic version of him through it? Be like, oh, that's me, but like in Image Comics as opposed to the show. That would be cute. Number 1, Battle Beast. What hero could be stronger than Invincible, whom the series and show are both named after, you ask? Well, this entry on the list isn't a hero at all, actually. Battle Beast, also known as Thok, is a villain who has been shown as being powerful enough to kick Invincible's butt and even take on several Viltrumites at once. Battle Beast is an intergalactic warrior who comes from a race of people known for their prowess in battle. He started out as the guardian of a planet, being the fiercest warrior there, but eventually became obsessed with finding a worthy opponent who could defeat him. So he ventured out into the galaxy looking for that worthy opponent on distant worlds, wreaking havoc on each one as he searched, and would find no one strong and skilled enough to defeat him. Or would he?